Hello and welcome to the CraftStar Special Sunday Live Hangout. Thank you ever so much to our very special guests who are joining us today. If you were with us 2 weeks ago, you will know that Ben Fisher, who is a Google Plus guru, came on and did a session with us on the basics of Google Plus and why it should be the center of your universe as a CraftStar seller. He promised us at the time that he was going to come back, and he has. Hello, Ben. How are you?
Hello, everybody. How are you doing today? Happy Sunday.
Happy Sunday. Thank you ever so much for taking your time. And Ben has brought along a friend. We've got Dustin with us, too. Hello, Dustin. How are you?
Hello. I'm great. Thanks for having me on, Bethan.
Thank you very much.
Bethan, as it should be pronounced.
I have to give our guests every week a lesson on how to say my name properly.
Well, I figured if I screwed it up first and corrected myself, that people would get it.
Okay, so for that, I'll call you Justin just once. Is that okay?
That's perfectly all right.
We've got the battle of the names out of the way now. So Ben, if you didn't catch it a couple weeks ago, you can catch it on our YouTube channel as you can on all our previous videos. Ben gave us the ABCs of Google+, and we promised that we would go a little bit deeper into some of the ins and outs and what you should be doing. We're very lucky to have Ben to give us that side of it tonight, and Dustin is a social media expert, so he's going to help us kind of understand where Google Plus fits into the whole social media world. I'm going to try to get out of them what you guys as shop owners on the CraftStar small businesses should be focusing on the most. We are pretty much entrenched historically in Facebook, Twitter, and Pinterest. And obviously, as we are selling based on thumbnail images, Pinterest is really big. And Dustin actually has something really interesting to explain to us about that, on how we can make it even bigger. So that will be coming up. And then we will also be talking about blogging, how important that is, and how important YouTube is. So we'll keep reminding you, and I told the boys before we started that it's all in Barbie language. If I don't understand it, I need it explained to me in Barbie language. If Barbie can get it, I can get it. So if they get too techie, I will be pulling them back, but they're pretty good, pretty well prepared. So one of the things I was about to say is YouTube is part of the Google family, and as Ben will explain in just a second, what goes into Google stays into Google. So these live broadcasts that we started last week are a huge thing, not just for the 15 minutes that you're on air, but for your life on Google+. So let's head on over to Ben. Ben, for the people who are joining us for the first time and meeting you for the first time, can you please give us a little background on Ben Fisher?
Sure, absolutely. I mean, basically, I started my internet career back before Google was even around, back in 1994, helping small businesses of multiple niches, about 100 different niches, learn how to get online and how to do business online.
Okay, perfect.
That's part of the pitch.
Well, it fits in perfectly with our small businesses, so that's why we love you so much. And why did you bring Dustin along before I asked Dustin his background?
Sure, I brought Dustin along because, well, Dustin and I meeting is a great example of Google Plus and the power of Google Plus to form relationships. Beforehand, Dustin and I had never really met, and we were kind of working both on the same types of social signal experiments, basically, at the same time. Dustin ended up getting his post out about the results about a week before I did. I was being lazy, I've got to admit it. And I came back to him and I said, hey, dude, guess what? You missed one little thing. Awesome, by the way. And we've been kind of working together ever since then. And since then, I've even done a couple follow-up experiments. So I thought this was the great timing to bring Dustin in.
Well, thank you ever so much. Let me ask you a question there that you just said. Well, you said two things. Social signals, you mentioned a couple weeks ago. We're going to tell you what those actually mean as we get into this. But you also said that you and Dustin were working on the same thing at the same time, but he actually picked you to the post as far as publishing. Is that kind of like a Darwin-esque scenario where he will get credit for something that, I'm not trying to cause a fight here, but out of interest, will he be getting credit for something that you guys have been both working on at the same time just because he posted it first?
Well, I'll answer that really quickly, and then Dustin, go for it. But I think that's just like any kind of like, bloggers are treated like news outlets almost now. It's been that way actually for about 5 years, 4 or 5 years, I think, as soon as the blogging revolution really started. So yes, the first one to put it out is the one who definitely gets the earmark and gets the credibility basically behind it, of course. But then we started working together on different things together. So now when people are talking about social signals, they usually mention Dustin or me, or me and Dustin at the same time. So it's kind of like, work together.
Great, and it's perfect, and you're coming at it from two different angles. So Dustin, thank you ever so much for joining us today and for taking time out of your Sunday. How are you?
I'm fantastic. I love Sundays.
It's a bit quieter in your house as your 2-year-old has left.
Yeah, we have some company coming over later, and my lovely wife decided to take the little one out because he has a tendency to want to join in the conversation, and he doesn't really, let's just say he doesn't enunciate as well as he needs to, and so yeah, they left the house so that Daddy could do his Google Plus thing.
Well, quite frankly, I might understand a 2-year-old's perspective of technology better than yours, but I'm going to do my best to try. So give us a little background on you.
Sure. I'm a blogger turned designer, or designer turned blogger, whichever way you want to look at it. I'm a full-time designer. I work on helping businesses and brands tell their stories better online. I'm a visual guy, so I do a lot of branding, and primarily in the social media space, helping to get the story of a brand out there in a more beautiful and in a more effective way. For me, it's all about effective communication, and I think social media offers the greatest medium for communication, both verbal, literal, and visual, that we've ever seen to date. So that's kind of where I lie. And
Okay.
I love to blog, so that's where the blogger side comes from.
That's all so interesting and exactly what our sellers need to hear. So let's dig into this a bit deeper. I'd love to touch back on blogging and how important that is later in the show. But we have some graphics here that you gave me a bit earlier, laying out the stats on social media. Should we go through that if I pull that up right now? Okay, there you got it. It's on screen.
Yeah,
you want to talk us through that?
Yeah, this is the most recent numbers that we have as far as user stats go on the biggest social networks out there. Now, obviously, most people know that Facebook is the big one. It's the most active social network out there. It's the titan, so to speak, with a 1.15 billion active users. So Facebook has claimed that in an average month, there are 1.15 billion people using and interacting with Facebook. Now that can mean anything from, leaving a status update once a month, or checking it daily, or even sending a private message or liking something. There's a very loose sort of way that they describe an active user, but the fact remains that they have said that they have 1.15 billion active users. Now the other stats have to do with the number of registered users, so the number of people who have signed up for an account, not necessarily how many are active on a daily, monthly, or bi-monthly basis, just the number of users that the social site has signed up for membership. Google Plus comes in at number 2, surprisingly to most people, because a lot of these so-called experts out there on social will tell you that Google Plus is a ghost town and that there's not a whole lot happening. But the fact is that there's just over 1 billion people that Google Plus has put on the books as members. And the active users hasn't been released yet. I'm told, though, that those active user numbers are going to come out soon. Google is going to make an announcement We don't know how soon, but we do know that, according to them, it will be pretty significant. It'll blow most people's minds. Twitter comes in at number 3 with the third most number of registered users, 500 million registered users, a very huge accomplishment for them. And then Instagram coming in at 4th with 150 million registered users, and then Pinterest, one of the fastest growing social networks out there, with 70 million registered users.
I'm actually surprised that Instagram is so far ahead of Pinterest. That's a big difference there.
Yeah, I was surprised as well. I didn't think Instagram was that big. However, being that they are tied to Facebook, I can see that being a huge uptick for them as far as users are concerned.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
I'm sure Pinterest is still growing rapidly at a very rapid pace. But yeah, it's very surprising though they haven't even cracked the 100 million mark.
So what? I'm sorry, Ben.
Yeah, let me just interject one thing there. I think there is a stat from Global Web Index, and this was back in February though, that where when you first did this image, actually, Dustin, I think they said 340 million active monthly users is what they have for Google Plus. And
yeah, back in February.
Yeah, at that time I think
Global Web Index. That was the graphic that I released for that. Was to date the most shared, and an interesting story about, and we'll get into this later, how Google Plus is a long-term investment as well as a short-term. But
well, actually, I think that's a good point to get to at the moment, if you're okay with that.
Sure.
Seeing those numbers and having those fresh in our head. The difference between a post on Facebook, which you described earlier as a walled garden, which I thought was fascinating way to describe it, and the difference of a post on Google+. So the ghost town thing, people aren't seeing anything on Google+. I hear that all the time. So the impact of the difference of the time that you take to post something on Facebook versus posting something on Google+, where are you getting the most benefits?
Well, for me, just to address the ghost town thing right out of the gate, it's the equivalent of somebody joining Twitter and not following anyone who's active. So a lot of these experts have gone on to Google+, signed up, and they didn't follow anybody. They just expected people to magically follow them without doing any work, and they go on there and say, nobody's doing anything. Well, that's because you're not following anyone who's doing anything. It's not the network's fault, it's your fault. Stop being lazy and go do something.
Okay.
Take the 30-day challenge.
Yeah, I'm going to come to you, Ben, in just a second when Dustin finishes.
But as far as investment goes, if you're looking at your social media activity and looking at the ROI of it all, because that's a huge conversation, isn't it? The ROI of social media. Mm-hmm. For me, my experience with clients and my own personal experience, Google Plus offers an immeasurable amount of ROI when compared to Facebook. So if you're not familiar with how they both work, Facebook is a walled garden, and what that means is everything that happens on Facebook or in Facebook stays in Facebook. So if you do a post on Facebook that gets a lot of traction, a lot of people like it, you're running some sort of promo, it might get a lot of attention out of the gate, or maybe it doesn't. But once that post is done, it's done. You're not going to really see it ever again. People can search for things on Facebook, but that's the only place they can search for them. Google Plus, on the other hand, is tied into Google Search heavily. So whenever you do a post on Google Plus, the return is both immediate, meaning you'll get the attention, in accordance to your following and so forth, and how popular it gets immediately. But for the long term, Google Plus posts are indexed by Google Search. So your post that you just did on a social media network has a chance to be found through Google Search. So just like a lot of businesses are investing in Google Search, optimizing their websites for Google Search, they now have an opportunity for their social media activity to add to their search discoverability. Is that non-technical enough so far?
It's perfect. It's perfect. It's what we described last week as pretty much cutting out the middleman. That
Right,
you're
absolutely.
going directly there. Yeah.
And for me, one experiment that I've done, and I'm actually writing a blog post about this, is that ability to be indexed on search through social media, not just through your website, gives you all these different channels. I'll give you one example. When was the last time you or anybody watching, when was the last time you had a tweet or a Facebook post that you posted 3 months ago get new activity after it's already 3 months old? Anybody?
Interesting.
Okay, so that little tiny post that I made back in February when these user numbers came out from Global Web Index, I have consistently gotten notifications on that one post, now well over 5,000 shares and some close to 6,000, I think, plus ones. I've gotten consistent activity since February, so what, that's 8 months?
Mm-hmm.
That one social media post has stayed active on a weekly basis for 8 months. One social media post.
That's amazing.
So, and it's not just because people are finding it and sharing it on Google or Google+, they're finding it on Google Search. So that's been incredibly powerful for me as a business person, being in business for myself and an entrepreneur, but also, you know, for my clients, saying this is the power that your social media posts have that they don't have on any other network.
Okay, I think that's fascinating and exciting and wonderful and great for all small businesses like we have on the CraftStar. I hope very encouraging to you. But what Ben mentioned last week is that something related to what Dustin just said, that people sometimes go onto Google Plus and say it's a ghost town. There's nobody I know. You know, where is everybody? It's not what I call a splash and run venue. You can't just post an item for sale and then expect it to resonate with anybody else. So Ben's got a great, what's it called? What's the thing? Sketch.
Talking about sketch?
Yeah, talking about sketch. What are those things called? Not analogy? No, what is it? I'm brain dead. Acronym.
Acronym.
So Ben's got a great acronym on what Google Plus is all about. So as he'll explain to you, it is not a dash and run. And the reason why Dustin's post has been so successful and keep running since February is because he's constantly interacting. He hasn't just posted and left it. He is encouraging. He is commenting. He is, I'm hoping I'm saying this right, you are still involved in that post.
Engaging.
I assume. Engaging, right. Engagement is the big thing. So let's get Ben to talk us through, the karma wheel, again, of Google and what they like. And then I'm going to put up the sketch graphics when you get to that point so that we can share those as well.
Yep. So, and that is a big difference, actually, when you look at the difference between Facebook and Twitter. And I don't think Dustin could have put it any more eloquently, and that is the fact that, yeah, what happens on Facebook, what happens on Twitter kind of stays in there unless somebody shares a link. Everything else that happens, everything that happens on G+, definitely happens on Google.com, happens on YouTube, and can even extend to Facebook and Twitter, of course. But yeah, let's talk a little bit about how a person should behave on Google Plus to get the most out of it, even as a brand as well. By the way, this kind of extends both ways, and is also, I think, one of the other big differentiators between the other networks and Google Plus, because you really have a lot of experts, you have a lot of people who actually care about who they're talking to, and being a social network, it's about connecting with people, and not just being, like you said, a splash and run kind of thing. Let me throw my product out there and it's done. Don't come back to it again. So yeah, that definitely comes into Sketch, which is a little bit, again comes down to the fundamentals of how you should behave on Google Plus. So the S in Sketch is all about sharing what you like, and the reason behind the S of the sharing of what you like is because that way you're going to be able to connect to people where your message actually really resonates. So, for instance, for me, I talk a lot about Google Plus. I talk about SEO. Every once in a while, I talk about martial arts, talk about video games, and I've got separate audiences for all of that. Where somebody has +1 my post, or they've commented on my post, like about video games, and I'll take them and I'll move them into an appropriate circle, basically. So next time I do some communicating about video games, I can communicate directly with these people. The K stands for being knowledgeable. And what being knowledgeable is all about is actually about going into other people's posts or other people's communities, comments, and sharing your knowledge. If somebody has a question, then you should definitely be there to answer that question. Again, it'll help also build a following as you resonate further with people. Expertise. Now, that's kind of like being knowledgeable, but it's more about sharing your expertise in kind of a standalone way. So, for instance, a great example of that is when Dustin did the image of the numbers for the different social networks. With that, he was kind of sharing his expertise and also, of course, his visual expertise at the same time. And he put out a post that really resonated. And it's something that if you can do it once a day, just share something that you know about and that you're an expert at, and people will gravitate towards you, especially if you share it in the right places. The T stands for being thankful and thoughtful. And what that means is a lot of people, like on other social networks specifically, like to take a lot of credit for things. So they'll do a repost, say, of somebody else's work, and they really won't mention that, oh, this actually belonged to this guy over here. And so being thankful and thoughtful is I found a post actually just this morning from Eric Eng that was about semantic search. And it was a really great slideshow. So what did I do? I wanted to share this with my audience because my audience is very interested in SEO. So I went ahead and I said, I put down my thoughts about it first of all. So that was kind of the being thoughtful area. And the thankful area is, thanking directly, doing a hat tip and thanking Eric Eng for putting this together in the first place. And then I put in of course, my own insight into what I thought it was about as well. So that's what I mean by being thankful and thoughtful, always acknowledging the source. And people on G Plus do this all the time. If Dustin and I are, for instance, in a conversation and I say, thanks, Dustin, that was awesome, he'll come back and he'll +1 my comment. That's a thoughtful measure is what that is. It's an endorsement in a sense. The C in Sketch is being caring and connecting. And what that means is kind of like, well, again, how we kind of met the CraftStar. Being caring it was kind of a little bit of a drive-by, saw you in a community and saw that you asked for some help. So without looking for any kind of business to be made out of it, I said, yeah, I can help the CraftStar. They're doing some really cool, innovative stuff with Hangouts. It sounds interesting. So I reached out and I connected with you. And again, I wasn't really looking for anything. I was just looking to help. And that kind of leads to the H, which is being helpful. And coming out in such a way where you do genuinely want to help people. And again, there's no ulterior motive in it other than sharing your expertise, being knowledgeable, and truly wanting to help. And I think where that brings us to is the karma wheel. And that is just like in business in general. If you put good things out there, good stuff comes back to you. And it takes time sometimes. Sometimes it can happen very rapidly. But just like the karma wheel goes around and around, everything that you put into Google Plus or into your social networking really, or business in general, comes back to you tenfold. And I think both Dustin and I and you, Bethan, have seen this happen now many times over.
It continually surprises me. So we're an e-commerce site who we built our community. Well, we built our site around community and broadcasting. I wanted to build it around a community where people who were like-minded could help each other out and help promote each other and help build the businesses. And with my broadcasting background, that we would do a lot of these sort of hangout things and pass on this sort of information. And I built it coming from a competitor site, where it's not a helpful environment. And I thought that's just silly as a bunch of small businesses. If you want to succeed, building as a team is a lot easier than being out there on alone bitching about everybody else. So I was kind of used to that, coming from that angle, coming from nobody wanting to help each other, everyone out for their own, and basically not really doing anything to help the business, but just bitch and moan in forums. So I have been absolutely overwhelmed with how helpful people like you and Dustin. Look, you're taking your time out on a Sunday afternoon, which is family time. You're doing this to help the CraftStar. You're not getting paid. You know, you're not getting any business out of it, and you are helping people so much in their understanding. And I see this over and over and over again on Google+. And I think it's kind of a head trip to get yourself around at first, because really the real world isn't like that. The real world isn't as giving and helpful and thoughtful and everything else that you've just said as Google+ is. And I described it a couple weeks ago as like kind of landing in fairyland, and every door I opened was another nicer person who, how can I help you? I'm not exaggerating. This is really the way Google+ is. But to build those relationships, you also have to do that. And so it is a timely exercise. And again, we can go back to you, Ben, and what you suggested a couple weeks ago, that you're not going to continue to get things out of it unless you continue to put things into it, which takes time. But you build up these relationships that are just invaluable. And I think a perfect example of that is the reaction we got to our first live sales last Wednesday. If we hadn't had that few weeks, with me totally engulfed in Google+ and shocked at what was in there and how beneficial it was to our small businesses, we would never have had the response and the breakout that we've had since our first live sales. So, Dustin, to you, out of interest, what makes a person like you on Google+ want to give to other people, where actually you could be charging for this time?
I think it's just, I think it's something that is a lot different than the other social networks. Well, I guess Twitter is somewhat this way as well, but Facebook is kind of the place where you talk with people you already know, and you kind of already know their story, you already know their background. They may or may not know you in a business context or in a professional context, which for me has been the biggest challenge as a business. My friends and family, they don't see me as a business owner, as a branding expert, or as a graphic designer. Therefore, they're not really looking for me as a business. They're looking to see cute pictures of my son, or family photos or family outings. Where Google+ I think is different than that is it's a network where you don't know everybody on there, and so therefore the biggest sort of critique that people have is, I don't know anybody on Google+, is actually one of its greatest benefits, because it's a place where you go to network and meet new people, and sort of reestablish yourself and not have all that preconceived idea of you as a person. You have a whole new opportunity, a whole new world that opens up to network and interact and grow your network, as opposed to staying with the same network you've always had. And so that is exciting. And just like in normal networking, you want to tell people who you are, what you know, and just kind of showcase what you're about. And I think because of the ease and simplicity of sharing that sort of expertise and knowledge through Google+, I think people just are so inclined to do it. And myself, in particular, being a graphic artist and a very visual person, branding oriented, the beauty of sharing images on Google+ is so attractive. I just want to do it all the time. Mm-hmm. And people, that just elicits people, or compels people to ask, that's beautiful. How did you do that? Or is this what you do? And so naturally, I just share my expertise, my knowledge, and when you get that sort of positive feedback, you're compelled to help. I think. At least I think.
I think also what you're saying just then, to survive and to want to put in the time, you have to be a good person to begin with. I don't mean good as in nice, but in wanting to learn and wanting to give. So
Right.
that whole splash and dash thing does not work on Google+. And if that's all you're willing to invest in it, you're not going to get anything out of it. So those people get run out. So I guess the people that survive on Google+ have the mentality going in, or at least sustaining themselves and building themselves as people who do want to learn and do want to give back. Those are the survivors.
Yeah, absolutely. It's been shown time and time again that those who fail to engage, and this word engagement is so overused nowadays, and I even hesitate to use it, but it's really the only way to communicate. You need to interact. Maybe that's a better word. And those who just, I like how you put it. What is it? Splash and dash.
Yeah.
I love that. And you see it time and time again. Those who just post something and run, you can tell. The audience on Google Plus is highly engaged. They can smell a spammer a mile away. So if they think that you didn't put any thought, that you're kind of splash broadcasting a message without any intentionality to it, you're never going to get any traction on Google Plus. I can promise you that.
Yeah, I'll jump in there really quickly with something I think that'll resonate with the CraftStar audience. And that is I think I said this on the last show. I have a customer, the Silver Diva, who makes custom jewelry, and so we're a part of we manage her brand page, and we're part of a couple different communities that are centered around crafting and such. And I get these notifications almost every day now, where it's like somebody new has posted into, say, the crafting community. And it's a full-on splash and dash. I just want to promote my services. I don't want to hear anything else. Just look at my stuff and buy my junk, basically. And it totally looks like it. And what Dustin said there is perfect. It's people want to engage. They want to talk to somebody who's real, even if it's a brand. They want to talk to somebody who's real.
Mm-hmm.
And that is the big difference, I think, between like Facebook, Twitter, and G+. You've got the experts, you've got people who care, and everything else is like, it's all friends and family out there. Sure, you can connect with friends and family on Google Plus too, but it's more like, it's like you were saying, it's a business network. It's a bunch of professional people who want to hang out and do something.
And I'm really glad you brought that up as a business network, because for the CraftStar users, it's still a promotional tool. It's still showing what they have for sale and trying to get clicks through and sales. So, but there are ways to build these posts, not the splash and dash, but to actually make them thoughtful, and to, most of the sellers, but all the sellers, know exactly what goes into what they're selling, whether it's handmade, vintage, or crafting supplies. There's a story to everything, which is beautiful. And that's something that we've got coming up, actually, the perfect anatomy of a Google Plus post. But what I think maybe we need to take a step back and do at some point, and I don't know, if Ben, if this is you or if this is way too basic for you, but I think what Dustin said, when people go onto Google Plus and they say it's a ghost town, there's nobody there, it's actually quite complicated to learn yourself how to use circles, how to find these people, and how to find the right communities. Because unless you know that communities even exist on Google+, it's not obvious when you first sign up. You've got to hover over onto the left to get that bar that says communities, and then search out for the communities that have your interest. And that's the way that you're going to network for a site like the CraftStar, where you are selling things. You want to connect to other sellers. You want to connect to people who are vintage buyers or vintage collectors, if that's what you're selling, or handmade enthusiasts. So the whole setup process almost is probably a broadcast in itself. How to set up a brand page, how to get your circles organized. That's one thing that I completely screwed up, having no ideas what circles meant. I was just throwing people left, right, and center. I've now had to go back and try to organize it so that when I post something, I'm not spamming people who aren't interested in the latest listing on the CraftStar. So do either one of you have a thought on that, about the very, very basics?
I would actually say that you could probably do an entire HOA just about the 3 C's: communicating, circles, and communities.
Hmm.
I mean it's kind of to the core of Google Plus. And what makes it really work are those 3 things. So, but yeah, I mean, I say we got 25 minutes left here, so I would say we kind of gloss over that for at the moment. What do you think, Dustin?
Okay.
Well,
I
I'll say one thing. When just like when Twitter sort of caught its biggest traction is when marketers realized they can search Twitter for their customers. Google owns Google Plus, obviously, it's in the name, and one of the best features about Google Plus is that it has the best search of any social network alive because it's Google. So the search bar in Google Plus is immensely valuable. So whether you're looking for customers, communities, or even circles, there's a feature on Google Plus that allows you to share your circles with other people, so other people can add all those people in that circle. You can use that search bar in Google Plus and search for whatever you want, whether it's you're searching for people using the phrase "just bought shoes." You can search out phrases. You can search out topics. You can search hashtags. All these things are instantly available on every page from within Google Plus to search out and find those conversations, or to find those circles of people, or to find those customers that you're looking for. The search bar is the #1 most powerful tool I think that Google Plus offers.
think the 3 C's is an excellent idea, and I think we could probably almost do it in real time, where the CraftStar sellers could have on one screen open their Google Plus page and build it as we teach them where to go search for the people with their interests. So we could break it down into handmade, crafting supplies, and vintage, help them build their circles, help them organize their circles, help them find the communities, and that kind of do a real time, let's get your Google Plus page going. So what I'm going to need for that is a social media Google Plus expert to help with the very basics here. Gosh, I wonder if any of these guys hanging around would be interested in doing that with me.
Personally, I don't know anybody who's good at the basics, so.
Yeah. One thing I'll bring up there, though, really quick, Bethan, is this. Dustin made actually a really great point about this. And for anybody that has saw the previous show and is in the midst of their 30-day challenge and is finding that, well, challenging, Dustin's point of searching for shared circles is actually a very important thing, especially when you're first getting started. You don't have many friends when you first get started. Yeah, it can go through your Gmail account. It can, suggest friends based off of their email addresses. But going into Google Plus search and say putting in crafting shared circles, or whatever keyword of something that really is of interest to you personally or professionally, and then finding that shared circle and then saving that shared circle down to your profile. So now you can actually view that in a stream, all of these new people who you're following, and it'll show up in your home stream too. So if you're finding yourself still in the ghost town, and you haven't gotten involved in some circles and you haven't actually interacted with anybody, that's a great starting point. Look for shared circles.
Excellent advice. Okay, thank you. I will find somebody this week, CraftStar people watching, to do the 3 C's, and we'll do it real time. And maybe I can find a woman to help me. If you guys have any suggestions, I'd love to have a girl on here help us build this. Okay, so let's get moving on. Sorry about that, but I do think it's important to actually also go back a step from the very beginning, because as Dustin said earlier, I've seen our sellers on there posting stuff, posting great things, but not having the circles or not having the audience. So it's frustrating because you're not getting anything out of it. So we'll go back to that. So, okay. Dustin, let's go back to graphics that you gave me earlier on the anatomy of a perfect Google Plus post. Are you comfortable going through with that if I bring it up?
Absolutely.
Fantastic. Okay, let me bring up the graphics.
Not like you did that or anything, right, Dustin?
Yeah, it's not like I, wrote it or anything.
Dustin, I think you need to come help us with on the craft store with some of these graphics. These are fabulous.
Thank you.
Okay, so let's not. They're beautiful. You can see why they're shared so much. So let's kind of rumble through these, and if you don't mind, we'll post them on our Google Plus page so that people can go look at them.
Absolutely.
If that's okay.
Yeah.
So do you want to start from the top and kind of just do it briefly?
Sure. And let me just give a brief intro to keep it as simple as possible. When you're crafting a social media message, obviously you want it to be as attractive as possible and as effective as possible for your business to get that interaction and to get that engagement. And so what I've found through observing Google Plus for the past 2 years and seeing who's successful, who's not successful, what works and what doesn't work, I've kind of come up with this framework of the anatomy, or how a perfect post is crafted. These posts tend to get more exposure, more plus ones. As you can see, the one shown there has a significant amount of plus ones and shares. And generally, this gives you a perception from your audience of being intentional, of being engaging, and overall just boosts your brand as someone who's not just completely doesn't know what they're doing. This makes you look like you know exactly what you're doing, and it elicits engagement. So I'll start at the top with title. Every Google Plus you have that you want engagement on should start with a title. It gives people a context of what you're talking about and helps them to know whether or not it's something they're interested right off the bat. It gives them scannability. They're able to scan and say, oh, this is what I'm interested in, or no, it's not what I'm interested in. The way you craft a title is to keep it as short as possible, as descriptive as possible, just like a blog post. But what you want to do is, here's a little trick that is built into the Google Plus, and it's part of formatting a post. You'll notice on the perfect post that title is bold as opposed to the rest of the text. And the way you do that is by typing an asterisk, the little star symbol, before and after the phrase that you want to be bolded. So at the beginning and end of that phrase, if you put an asterisk, everything in between those asterisks will be bold. Likewise, I've put kind of a tagline after that bold phrase, and I've made it italicized using the underscore. So a little underscore at the beginning and the end makes it italicized, and that makes for a really great scannable title that people can see. The next paragraph or two that I usually place, you really only need one, a couple sentences at most, is a summary of what I'm drawing the attention to. So I'm kind of summarizing the link that I'll be posting to, and of course after that summary I post a call to action. So it says read more here, or read the full article here, or see the full product here, and then you put the link in there. Now you'll notice I've broken up the paragraphs too with a space in between. Again, it gives people the ability to scan a little bit faster, and less text that's broken up with some white space is much more attractive to the eye. So people are a lot more likely to actually read what you're saying. So title, summary, link, and then some commentary that shows people that you're a human being, that you actually have an opinion, or you have something more to say from a personal standpoint. It personalizes your message and shows that you're not just some faceless robot that's just posting, this thing that you want people to see. My number 5 point there is engagement. Prompt them to engage with you. Ask them a question. Give them something that provokes a response. And then, of course, the last thing you always want to put, in the body of it, is your hashtags, relevant hashtags that people can, that will add your post into a conversation that's already happening. Hashtags, I guess, could be a completely, a whole nother Hangout on Air explanation if you're not familiar with that. But most importantly, to get the maximum exposure, you want to use an image. And so Google Plus allows you to upload an image to your posts, and in order for it to get seen, you always want to use a compelling image, because this Google Plus, like Pinterest, is a very visual network. People, are looking for something that stands out, something that pops. And if you're just posting text, I'm sorry to say, this is not Twitter, and people expect a little bit more visual engagement. So always upload a relevant, attractive photo to add to your post. Now, this may seem really complicated for someone who's used to just Twitter, posting 140 characters, but I promise you the return on investment is so much greater.
Okay, you had a really good point there with the images. So we're an e-commerce site where we say you get one shot, make it your best, right? So you're trying to sell products. It's a one-dimensional site, so there are just static images. What I've noticed on posting on the CraftStar page, if I want to post one of our listings, the image is much better if I drag and drop it to my desktop and upload it rather than relying on the image from the URL.
Right.
It's completely different, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, so you always want to upload the photo first. Otherwise, if you put the link in there first, Google Plus will generate that little thumbnail preview, and it won't be as prominent. It may get a little more interaction than just a plain text post, but still an image, time and time again, has proven to get more engagement, more exposure. There's a number of other benefits too, but to keep it simple, images get more attention, period.
But this is actually a really good segue into the topic of our discussion, which is social signals. And, Dustin and I came at our experiments from two totally separate angles. I was looking for instance, what was going to create the most number of +1s per user. And Dustin was looking for what's going to give me the best brand exposure and the widest net of people. And the image post is a great example of something that can get a lot of engagement. It can also get out to a lot of different people because it's highly shareable. People love images. Pinterest is a great example. Google Plus, most definitely. It's a beautiful environment. But what I found out, at least from my experiments, is that when you do a post that has an image, and again, this might get a little bit technical, but when you do post,
Barbie.
I know, when you do a post with an image, you're losing about 3 out of 4 of potential. Well, actually, I'm sorry, I take that back. 2 out of 4 of your potential social signals, and those social signals are what actually helps a page rank better in Google.com search. So what I like to really encourage is that when you first put out your message about, say, a blog post, use a beautiful image. Use an image, craft your post greatly, and it'll get out wide. But don't forget to come back maybe 2 weeks later and share it as a link or just a plain text post, because you still want to get those social signals. You want to build those numbers, and the only way to really do that is with a shared link being probably the most primary method, and the second is just a plain old text with a link to basically inside of the post.
Okay, so Barbie to understand that, sorry Dustin, for Barbie to understand that, why does an image take away from the impact of a post?
So the reason for that is that because images are highly shareable, right? You get the page that's, say, the first link in the post is what's getting the +1 credit, right? +1's credit, I should say. But as soon as that image gets shared to somebody else, so I see that post of Dustin's and I share it to a community or to a friend, 2 out of 4 of the potential social signals get stripped out immediately because it's no longer considered a shared link, number one, right? Because a shared link causes a social signal. So that's when Dustin was saying putting the link in to the post and it creates the little thumbnail image. that's considered a shared link. Also, because it's being shared as an image, you lose all of the commenters +1s as well, and that's the biggie, is the commenting +1s. So every unique person who comments on a link generates also a new +1. So you miss that component basically.
So as a seller, then, if I'm posting something I want to sell, am I better off having just the thumbnail rather than the beautiful image?
Go for it, Dustin. You want to field that one?
Well, there may be opposing views on this, and I'm okay with that. I tend to think that purchasing decisions tend to be more visual. People like to see what they're buying. People like to, really get a good look at what they're buying into. And so if you're sharing an image, I don't have the data to back this up, but I think I would put all my money on the fact that if sharing an image will cause more purchase decisions than sharing a thumbnail link.
Okay. All right. And I beg your pardon for interrupting you a second ago. You were about to jump in on something. Do you remember what it was?
Oh, yeah. I was going to say, you may have covered this before, but did we talk about what a social signal is, or did we not need to go over that?
It would be great if we did it again in ABC terms.
Sure. I have a very simple analogy that I often tell clients who don't understand the concept of social signals. So think about two restaurants. So let's say you come to LA. You're looking for a great restaurant to go to, and you have no idea where to go. So you go down to say Hollywood, and you're looking at two restaurants side by side. One of these restaurants has a line of people out the door. Let's say 30 people lined up to get into the restaurant. The other restaurant, nobody outside the door. The door's wide open. You're free to walk in. Which one, in your mind, is going to be more attractive? Which one are you going to think is the better restaurant?
Very clever.
Obviously, the one that has the line at the door.
Fantastic analogy. That's awesome.
Right, and I can't take credit for it. I read it somewhere. I wish I remember where. So a social signal, be it a +1 or a like or a number of pins that something has received, the more of those signals, the higher the number is, the more the perception is that it's trustworthy, credible, exciting, or shareable. And people make their decisions on purchasing or sharing based on how credible or how much relevance it has. So for instance, if you see two posts within your stream that one has a ton of shares, a ton of +1s, the other one has 0, which one are you more likely to think, oh, that's the authoritative one? That's what a social signal is.
And that kind of goes back to what we discussed last week, Bethan, which is that the +1 acts like an endorsement, basically. And that's exactly what Dustin's talking about.
You've got Ben. You've talked about social signals. I haven't had any clue what it means. That was such a perfect way to break it down. Thank you so much, Dustin. I think it's sheep following sheep in some sense. It's trusting. It's being guided by what's already been trusted.
Right.
So it kind of takes a position. It takes an action out of your thoughts that. If you see the same kind of post, you're immediately drawn to the one that's more authoritative, so you don't have to make the decision. So that's actually a time help as well.
And that's speaking what my article. Oh, go ahead. I was just going to say that's what my article was all about. Why everything changed for me and how I share on Google+. I now only share images. I don't even share the thumbnails anymore because the image tends to get more shares, more +1s. Sending more social signals to the web page that I'm sharing. And so when people visit that web page, they see all the social signals that has accumulated, and they go, oh, wow, this is credible, or I better share this because 1,000 other people have.
And where can our viewers watching now or catching up on YouTube, where can they find this web page?
Well, that article that I shared, I can send you the link. It's dustin.tv/social signals and Google+, but I can post the link in the event page.
Okay, great. And then your Dustin without an I at the end .tv is your Facebook webpage.
Yes, that's my personal blog where I talk about all
personal
this.
blog. Okay, so we'll load all these up into the events page and give them a roundup to everybody so they can check them out later. We are running out of time. I would love if either of you would be up for it to come back again in the next not too distant future to talk about blogging and how important that is in the Google Plus world, because we do have a lot of bloggers out there, and I don't think that, I know me personally as a blogger, is not taking advantage of what is available out there to help boost your blogs. And also Pinterest, that blogging and Pinterest are tied together, which I had no idea of until I started reading some of Dustin's website in the last couple of days to prepare for this. So can we hold off on that for another day, and I can bribe you guys back? I'll send you CraftStar bags.
I would love to come back.
Awesome.
Thank you. Okay, one thing I would, though, like to touch on, though, because it's really applicable to this new world that the CraftStar has launched into, is YouTube and Google. I don't think people match them up as closely as they really are and realize that what goes out on YouTube is very beneficial for your social signals. Who wants to grab that one?
All you, Ben.
Okay. I thought you were going to take that one, man. Well, kind of going back to the whole walled garden concept, right? Google's very open. So Google also owns YouTube. So since Google owns YouTube, it's a Google product property, right? Everything that happens on YouTube also ends up in Google search as well. So, and the really beautiful thing about it is that when you share, and this, if I remember correctly, that was back in February, I believe, when the blue links started popping up. We call them blue links, but basically it's within a Google Plus post, you can't have any anchor text. In other words, you can't have a text link that says this is the CraftStar homepage and that's linked to the craftstar.com. With YouTube, if you put the link in, it actually will convert it to anchor text. So it has the ability to pass social signals from Google Plus back to the YouTube page, but more importantly, with that anchor text. So A, the social signals, the endorsements are flowing, and B, the descriptiveness of it with the anchor text is also flowing out to YouTube, which all the way comes back into google.com search, basically. Dustin, over to you.
What he said.
Okay, so for what we started last week with these live sales, what I would love to get across to CraftStar sellers is that you're not just on for that 15 minutes. That 15 minutes lives on Google, or lives on YouTube, so therefore lives on Google, but also your shop names and URLs are also in these YouTube posts. So you're benefiting way more than just the 15 minutes. Dustin, I'll give this one to you.
Yeah, so again, Google search is where every business wants to be, at the top of, because that's how people discover their business outside of social. Google search is where it's at, and being that YouTube is 100% owned by Google, it's tied into Google search, and being that Google Plus is owned by Google, it's 100% tied into Google search. And so, just touching back on the active users number, Facebook may have 1.15 billion active monthly users. How many active users are using Google search? That's really way more powerful
yes.
than any of the social media stats out there. Because whether you're posting on YouTube and your video is living on forever, or you're posting on Google Plus, your post is living on forever, both of those are taking your brand and giving it 2 more properties to come into Google search at, or broadcast and be broadcasted into Google search. And so you're getting all these different avenues sending your brand into Google search, rather than just have one area or one platform getting into Google search. You have multiple, all roads lead to Google search.
Ben, do you have anything to add to that regarding our live sales, our new venture?
the only thing I can say about the live sales beyond what Dustin just said is very well put, dude. Is that what kind of attracted me to the CraftStar in the first place was the fact that you were really trying to do something different, and really, in a sense, almost revolutionary, I believe, and using and pushing the technology of Hangouts on Air to a whole nother level. And kind of, I mean, I take it akin to almost the QVC of Google Plus, and but really giving small businesses that kind of that extra push and giving them those 15 minutes to really push their products and talk to people and show them about the products on a whole new medium. You're hitting the whole craft concept, being knowledgeable and sharing sketch all over the place. And I think that also on top of that, we were, I think it was Stefan actually earlier this week made this great post about the CraftStar HOAs. And, and that was followed up actually by SEO-wise as well, talking about how revolutionary the concept is. So I applaud you.
Thank you. Yeah, we've been working on it for a long time. With my broadcasting background, it seemed natural, and there was a gap in the market. And we've got, it's going to take time to build, but I think we kicked it off with the reaction that we had. We've kicked it off in the right way. People are watching, and that's the way forward. So we'll be doing that every Wednesday night. Please consider doing it, because as you just heard from Dustin and Ben, it helps you a lot as a seller, not just for that 15 minutes, but it lives on in Google land and YouTube land, and it will benefit you a lot. So I would love to talk to you both again offline to create another one of these where we tie in more into the blogging and the Pinterest, and I mean, it's never ending. But I thank you both so much for your time on a Sunday and talking to us in a voice that we can understand, appreciate, and do some good with. So thank you ever so much, Ben, for part 2. Can I have you back for part 3?
Surely.
Yeah? Great. Excellent. Thank you. And Dustin, we hadn't met before today, and this is now another great example of how beautiful Google Plus is, that you spent your hour on a Sunday helping out someone you didn't even know. So I thank you so much as well.
Absolutely. It's my pleasure.
Thank you. And we would love to have you back. If I could corral the two of you again for the Pinterest and blogging bit, that would be wonderful.
Absolutely. I'm there.
Excellent. Thank you so much. So that was an hour that went by really fast. A lot of information there. A lot of really great insight from two people that know what they're talking about. Again, the beauty of Google Plus, that these guys, they're not getting anything out of this. They are doing it to help you. We're doing it to help you. And I think that's wonderful. I really do. And that's what the CraftStar was built on a community to help each other. And that's what these broadcasts are about. So we will try to arrange to get them somehow again later this week. I don't know if I can do that with them, but I'll try for part 3. And I would also like to reach out and find a woman to take us through the very, very, very basic steps of setting up a Google Plus page and actually do it like we discussed earlier in real time. So this is how you set up a business page. This is how you get your circles organized. This is how you join the communities. I think that'd be really helpful for a lot of people. And remember, as both Ben and Dustin have been saying this whole time, it's all about interacting and involving. So if we, as the CraftStar, all our shops have Google Plus pages, we can support each other, and we can get these social signals built with each other's support. And we've already got that community on the CraftStar. We need to pull it out of the CraftStar, put it onto Google Plus, and work together as a community and really build ourselves up. So thank you once again, guys. If any of you missed any of this, it will be on our YouTube channel as always, and a bunch of information coming with links from Dustin and Ben. One more time I'll say thank you, Ben. Thank you, but goodbye. Have a great Sunday. Thank you, Dustin. Lovely to meet you, and have a great Sunday. And thank you ever so much for watching, and we will see you tomorrow night live at 7:30 p.m. Eastern, 4:30 p.m. West Coast. Okay, thanks. Have a great rest of your Sunday. Goodbye.
Bye-bye.